food
There will
instead
be
of doing.
pretzels and
Yeah, he's
M&Ms.
begging for food.
Doesn't sound too great.
Okay. Okay, good morning. We'll call the meeting to order at 10:30 something or other. And we'll have roll call.
Can we, yep. Alan,
Alan present by Zoom if allowed. Thank you. Good morning.
Doobie,
Over here.
Leonard,
Leonard here.
Williams,
Williams present remote.
and Roth is not Kenyon.
You're,
You have an in-person.
okay, I will say that
Quorum is not present in the room.
no quorum in the room, but Madam Chairman will come down and make quorum.
Yeah.
Roth had to go to a funeral and we'd like to have remote for Allen and Williams.
That's out of order until you have a quorum in the room.
Stop it. Have him removed. Help us.
You can't have me removed because this isn't an official meeting.
Oh, okay. Okay, we'll go the, can we do the minutes?
No,
Unanimous consent?
no, because
You gotta go
because
down.
you've established, you have to establish. a
I'm gonna
quorum.
have public comment, so we'll go to Steve Arnold. At least he's here. You have the floor, sir.
I have the floor. Okay. I'm going to be brief. I did hand out to all members of the committee and the staff a bi-monthly publication that the Illinois Farm Bureau does called Link Local Information News and Know-How. The February issue was on our 2024 local government priorities. There are 4. They're very simple. And you all have a copy of that. Generally, we send that out electronically, but since I came back from a governmental affairs conference yesterday afternoon, and they printed numerous copies of it, so I thought I would bring it this morning for the committee's information. One of those local priorities is to get county governing boards to pass pro-agriculture resolutions. The Kane County Board did that in February or March of last year. We will renew that call after elections, so we will probably be coming back in the winter, spring of 2024, 2025 to ask the new county board to approve a new resolution. The second thing I want to talk about is on Monday next week, we will hold our 23rd annual shopping spree for local food pantries. Under Sheriff Amy Johnson and State's Attorney Amy Johnson and State's Attorney Jamie Mosser will be the contestants. We've purchased about $50,000 in groceries through these shopping sprees over the years, and each of them has chosen a food pantry to represent. We'll kick off that activity at 10:30 on Monday morning at the Jewel Osco in Batavia on Randall Road. The public is welcome. We usually have 25 or 30 spectators there to cheer on the contestants, and it's a really good time.
What are the morning line on the contest?
I'm sorry.
What's the morning line on the contest?
I'm not choosing favorites.
In trouble again? Yes.
The third thing that I have in my notes is that we will hold our 18th annual Touch a Tractor 3-day open house at the Farm Bureau on April 12th, 13th, and 14th. As a part of that, on Saturday, April 13th, we will do a meet and greet for legislators and local public officials. We have invited in Regella Scavuzzo or Liz Replinger from the Illinois Farm Bureau to give a brief presentation on building relationships through urban agriculture, to talk a little bit about the new partnership between the Illinois Farm Bureau, the USDA, and NRCS. So all of you should be getting an invitation to that event within the next month. That's a late afternoon reception, 4:30, 5 o'clock, I believe. And then will include complimentary tickets for public officials who wish to go to the 4-H Foundation's Pork Chop Dinner, which is next door at the county fairgrounds on the same evening. So to the legislators, we presented as an opportunity for them to meet a farm constituency at 2 different events in very similar locations. So again, mark your calendars for April 13th and look for an invitation in the mail. And then the last thing that I will say is we've just gotten to the beginning of sorting through scholarship applications. We had 74 scholarship applications begun. I believe 42 of them were completed, and we're just now looking through to determine which of those we can forward to a judging committee. Our not-for-profit foundation will give away $38,000 to $40,000 in scholarships this year to about 25 students, and Mr. Kenyon is one of those that sits on the committee to judge those scholarships, which is not a fun task. That's a lot of paper. But we look forward to being able to announce scholarship winners in April, and we will actually do an awards ceremony for them at a King County Cougars game in July. So that concludes my report.
Mr. Chairman, Shepro, Special Assistant, the parliamentarian notes that, Madam Chair, having
Entered the room.
entered the room, that a quorum is now present in the room. And as of, I had 10:32 a.m., minutes should so reflect, and you may now proceed with the
So we'll go back
agenda.
to remote attendance requests.
Yes.
So
Can I make-
Deborah Allen and
Wait a minute.
Rich Wood.
You didn't ask if we had any comments to Steve.
What?
Can I make a comment about Steve's presentation before you go back?
I'm being very confused. Okay, do you have any questions for Stephen?
I do.
Okay,
Actually, it's not even a question. It's a thank you. I took my granddaughter to touch a tractor last year. It was an amazing afternoon for us. The educational experience, because she's a city kid in Aurora, was amazing. And then I also attended the legislative thing, and that was also a really good thing. So kudos to you for doing that every year. I think it gives those city kids a really good chance to get out and see that really cool equipment. So thank you.
it'll probably
that
snow
okay?
that day or rain very hard. Whenever
Doesn't,
we have.
it
touch-
doesn't,
we-
farmers have to go through that.
No. We should also comment, there's on the 1st of next month, you can get your well testing kit if you have a private well and you want to test it for contaminants. Whatever.
The first of next month, meaning March 1st.
First, you can get that. It's actually pretty just inexpensive. And if, it might make some of you happy. Any other questions for Stephen?
Mr. Kenyon, this is Alan. May I make your meeting a little bit longer, please?
Sure.
Steve, I just want to toss in here that you can bring all the resolutions that you want, but I think that the Kane County Farm Bureau has done such a wonderful job of becoming embedded in all that Kane County government wants to do to help its citizenry, urban and certainly agriculture, that you're already locked in our hearts. And I'd like to think, I hope that Kane County government is in fact right up there at the top in inspiring other local governments throughout Illinois to want to do the things that we do to embrace our agricultural community. You represent such a treasure. And I think the work that you've done to bring us into your lives and you into our processes is just exemplary. So thanks for all the hard work.
Okay.
Thank you. I, in response to that, first of all, I want to say embedded, sounds like a journalistic term, or it may be an espionage term. So I hope you don't look at it as if we're spying on you. But in all seriousness, I tell my peers and I tell my colleagues at the Illinois Farm Bureau that I believe that Kane County has the most agriculture-friendly local government in the state, if not in the Midwest, and I cannot make that judgment on a national scale. But we sincerely appreciate the attention that not only the Agriculture Committee, but the entire county board places on the importance of agriculture, and we're pleased to be a part of the process.
Madam Chairman?
Uh,
Chairwoman.
Person.
Steve, thank you for those comments, but I also would like to recognize Mr. Kenyon, who has really indoctrinated us with his love for the land. So, and cows.
I think, we haven't talked about it, but I think we're still on for bringing the 4-H people in next month.
Yes, indeed. I'm not going to speak to what the programs are, but we have asked our department heads to put up appropriate learning experiences for them. Since they seem to, the children like to listen here, but sometimes adult talk is not as interesting as learning about recycling and other activities that are going on here in the county. So that would give them a little bit more of a broader reach of learning experiences of the work of the county. So I think they're all making some great plans on how to arrange all of that for us.
Deborah Allen and I have always worked with them. If we're not done with Stephen, we can talk to the food bank guy.
No.
What?
We.
You want me to go back now?
Want you to go back and start
I
the
feel
meeting.
like a ping pong ball.
Yes.
Boom.
All right, so you had a request for remote attendance
Okay.
by Mrs. Allen and Mr. Williams.
Rich Williams.
Leonard so moves.
Okay.
Mr. Leonard has asked for unanimous consent,
Yeah.
I believe.
Yes.
Yes, that's exactly
and,
right. Thank you, sir.
If there's no objection, Mr. Chairman, then that would
Okay.
approve their retorts.
Then there's no public comments.
There's
so
no public comment, but
we
there
have
are
to-
there are
minutes?
minutes.
Is there a motion to get unanimous consent for the?
Yes,
minutes?
I move that we have unanimous consent on the minutes for the meeting of January 18th, 2024.
For you new employees, that means that we don't have to have a roll call vote. It just, we do it. It
Just
cuts.
like Congress.
Yes, at this time. Okay. Northern Illinois Food Bank? There,
Thank you.
he turned his mute off.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just some data points from the food bank for our fiscal year, which started in July of 2023. So for the first 7 months, we've served an average of almost 73,000 neighbors each month. And just for some context, our last fiscal year 23, averaged around 66,000 neighbors served each month. Just to level set a little bit, pre-pandemic, we served around 45,000 neighbors each month within Kane County. So as you can see, the need is still high and it's slowly increasing as well. Also preparing for a potential government shutdown starting March 1st. So just starting to prepare our neighbors for potential delays in SNAP benefits and a potential increase from a food bank perspective from federal employees who might be furloughed or out of pay for a little bit. So yep, definitely busy over at the food bank with the shutdown preparation, but that is my report.
Is there any questions for the food bank? Madam Chairman?
Thank you. That must be very stressful for all of you. And also for the neighbors who need the food that you provide. What options are you giving them? Because.
In terms of the shutdown?
Yes.
Right now, I think it's just notifying people, just getting information. First of all, just try not to cause panic, because if a shutdown started March 1st, then SNAP benefits would be good for the month of March. But if it was an extended shutdown, I think the longest shutdown ever was around 45 days. So they usually don't last too long, but if it lasted into April, then benefits could be delayed. So I think right now it's just notifying neighbors not to panic, but this could happen. So just, save up your SNAP benefits when you first get them, because we don't really know what's going to happen we haven't really pushed out anything quite yet. Still waiting to see, into next week how the appropriations process unfolds, but just preparing all our materials for our neighbors and then potentially looking at, additional mobile markets should a shutdown last a long time. We do mobile pop-ups in various locations throughout the 13 counties that we serve. So just looking to see if there's anything we could do. We serve a food pantry that serves mostly veterans up in North Chicago. So there's an active duty military members who work at Naval Station Great Lakes. So just looking to see if there's any additional, food outputs we could do in areas that have high concentrations of federal employees or military employees. So just kind of weighing all the different options, but, hoping that they can come to a resolution. I think this is the fourth time that they've come up to a government shutdown in the past 4 or 5 months. And each time they've done a continuing resolution. So hopefully they can finally pass all their appropriations bills or at least another CR.
Okay, thank you very much. Good luck.
Thank you.
Shall we move on to the health department staff? Do we have anybody here from them? Sophie Hamilton? Why is this here if there's nobody here? Why did you do that? Okay, then we'll go to the agricultural census highlight. Matt?
What about development department staff?
Oh, I skipped to them. I'll go back to development.
Great. Good morning. We're really pleased this morning, really excited to introduce you to 2 new staff members. Our current planning division team has been shorthanded by 2 staff members since the end of 2022. We're very grateful that the county board reinstated those positions in the budget for this year. And so this morning to my right is Sarah E. Castro, started at the end of January, working as our new farmland preservation administrator. She comes to us with a great deal of talent, enthusiasm, and experience, including working with the NRCS in the state of Iowa. So she's jumping in at a high level and also relocated to Kane County to take this position. And then across from me, waving there is Catherine McKenna. Also has some roots in Iowa, going to the University of Iowa, but grew up locally and has joined our team as our new planner and GIS specialist. She'll be providing mapping support for our entire team and others as needed, and has some real good talents at writing and background in environmental information. So both just started at the end of January. They've been flexible because we showed them their new offices and then said, don't move in because you're going to be relocated temporarily. So they're learning how to be flexible right away. So anyway, wanted to introduce you and also thank the county board for reinstating these
Do
positions.
they have a speech ready or you gonna tell us all about yourself? That's all you wanted, right?
If you want to hear.
PowerPoint, yeah. Well, that'll blend in with the farm bill. We don't have that. We haven't continued, but we get a lot of money we have gotten money for farmland preservation from the farm bill, but I'll bet that'll be a long time before that happens with Congress. Anyway, any questions? Okay. Now, Matt Tansley.
Good morning. Thank you. I think Blair's got a clicker for me. But today I wanted to share some information that was recently released by USDA. So they just published this month data for the latest agriculture census. So this was conducted in 2022, and it includes, so they try to capture all farms that sell at least $1,000 in agricultural products within that census year. So it's really the most comprehensive survey of farmers in the country. And so we can drill down, and today we're going to look at just some of the highlights of that data at the Kane County level. But this is really just a small piece of what they publish. So we'll be going over the rest of the data a little bit more thoroughly in the months to come. So just looking at the scale of farming, so there are, as of 2022, 509 farms identified in Kane County. This is a bit of a decrease from the 2017 census, which had the number at 605. Farmland acreage is a little over 146,000. The average farm size in acres is 288. And then the median farm size, which is the middle value farm size, is around 46 acres. So looking at the economic side of these farms, so looking at the total, the average land value of land and buildings on these farms, for individual farms, the average is around 3.5 million, and this represents a 17% increase from the 2017 census. We did have a slight increase in the average value of machinery and equipment per farm. Currently, that's around 243,000. That's about a 6% increase. Then if we look at the average market value of agriculture products sold, we saw a really substantial increase from the previous census. So the current census has this value at around $558,000 per farm. This represents an 86% increase over the 2017 figures. So that was a pretty significant change.
What year was this? That was 22?
Yeah, so the current census figures were, the census was taken in 2022. And when we look a little bit more closely at the amount of acreage in farmland, we can kind of see how this has been trending downward since 2007. So it was a little bit under 200,000 acres, and it's kind of, it's ticked downward. There was actually a little bit of an uptick between 2012 and 2017, but since then it kind of continued downward, and now we're down to 146,000 acres in farmland. When we look at the groupings of farms by size, we are seeing a bit of a downward trend in the smaller scaled farms. So that includes the 1 to 9 acre and 10 to 49 acre groups. The 50 to 179 acre group of farms is more or less constant. There really hasn't been much of a change there. Just noticeably a slight downward change. And then looking at the farms over 179 acres, there has been about a 6% increase from the 2017 census figures. And then when we look at the farm land use practices that farmers are using, we have seen that for no-till practices, there was a slight increase from 2017 to 2022. So we are up over 20,000 acres that are using no-till practices. But conversely, there was a bit of a decrease in reduced tillage practices. So that went from 66,000 down to around 52,000 acres total. So we also did see a decline in what's considered intensive or conventional tilling. And so that fell from around 53,000 down to around 41,000 acres. Cover crops, we did see a slight increase, but nothing, nothing dramatic there. And lastly, looking at vegetable production specifically, we did have a decrease from the 2017 census that did fall by about pretty close to half. So down from 1,049 acres to 532 acres in the most recent 2022 census. But conversely, we did see an increase in the number of identified farms growing vegetables for sale from 45 farms to 49 farms. So there are some interesting details here, and we'll have to spend a little bit more time analyzing this to kind of, see what could be explaining these changes. But we did just want to take this time to share some of these high-level highlights. And I'd be happy to take any questions.
Are there any questions, Mr. Leonard?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Matt, I've got a question for you. With respect to the average value of farms being 3.5 million, is that based on the average farm or the median farm?
That's the average. Yeah. So that the median, I would suspect, would be lower because, larger farm values would kind of affect that average value.
Thank you.
Yes.
Any other questions? 22, oh yeah, Madam Chairman.
I was reading, I think in Farm Week, about the increase in growth of economy of growing vegetables. And that is seems to be a profit center moving forward with farms, especially in the organic area. Why the decrease here? That's one question. And is also the decrease in property that is allocated for farmland, used for farmland, is that because those farms have been sold for development, or if they've been taken off because of solar fields? And I think that's a small component, but why? What's the move on that?
Yeah, I would hesitate at this point to give a definitive explanation for that. I mean, I think there could be a combination of factors from, from development to annexations that have occurred since 2017. So some of that land may have been, subdivided, had changes in land use once incorporated. We have certainly seen an increase in solar, which would change how the USDA, recognizes that land as agricultural, because it's not, it's no longer producing for sale, even though, it's still considered farmland. We consider it a farmland use. So I think we'll have to take some time to kind of, look at this to kind of see what explains that change.
And then what about the product that is being, the reduction of farms that are growing vegetables? Because local food sourcing is so important on so many different levels. Have any idea of why that's being reduced?
Again, at this point, I think we'll have to look at that more closely. I don't want to speculate too much. This was taken during, the pandemic, closer to the high point of the pandemic. So there could have been some effects there on businesses that were, operating at different levels then. So we'll look at that.
More. I think the study is fascinating. The small farms, why would that decrease? Any knowledge of why these small farm owners, acre to 9 acres, had decreased? Because that was a pretty dramatic Blair, could you pull that chart up of the farmland on the acreage? There it is.
One thing that I'd like to add on that you have to remember, this is a US census and not our local figures.
So
it's based
I
on
thought
reporting.
this was local.
No, this is the US Census of Agriculture, not our reporting. So Matt has been keeping very close watch on the number of what we call our growing for cane farms, which are local food producing farms. and through many methods. And he's done a lot of surveys and things like this during this time, which is why he wants to dig in a little bit more before speculating. But keep in mind that we, unlike many places, as you mentioned, because of our county's resources toward agriculture, do spend more time digging into local data. So reconciling this based on reporting at the federal level versus, and I would suspect that smaller farms are not used to responding to federal census of ag data compared to our larger farms. That would be one thing that we should note. But yes, I think to wait for Matt's
Okay.
further reconciling of the federal and then our local data will be important coming up.
Thank you for that clarity. I had assumed
Yeah.
when Matt said that drilling down to Kane County, I went,
Exactly. It's the census
Kane?
data at the county level.
Okay.
Right.
okay.
Mr. Van Kerkhoff?
Yeah, I just want to note also for the committee, the timing of the census data and combining that with our local knowledge is timely. At your continued board meeting next week, we have a couple of contracts for consultants for our agriculture program. You approved through this committee last month. One of those consultants we're going to be working with is to look at how we can use our ARPA funds to tailor a grant program to maybe provide those supports. If we're, to continue to make our local growers sustainable, especially in vegetable and other local production. So the timing of it is helpful. It'll be helpful data to show for the justifications under ARPA on how this helps our local growers who have been impacted by the pandemic. So thank you.
22 and 23 were good years of production and price. The price is now down, so we'll be having a tip jar, support your local farmer. Well, corn is, I called the other day and corn was less than $4 a bushel. Last year it was up around 6 much of the year and 5. And then this year, this is the first year that Brazil has surpassed the U.S. in export of corn and soybeans. Really?
They're knocking down all their rainforests. The rainforests are being knocked down for that increased farm production.
So any other questions? We can move on. Okay. Water resources. So it could be a quick meeting.
Thank you. I was able to attend the Illinois Association of Drainage Districts conference in January down in Bloomington Normal. And with this committee, I typically bring back a update based on some of the presentations that were had at that conference. So obviously, as you probably are aware, one of the big topics specifically impacting drainage districts is the wind and solar law. And so I have excerpts from 2 of the presentations that I'd like to bring forth to the committee today to give a little background of how the drainage districts and Illinois Association of Drainage Districts is approaching hopefully some amendments to that law that will help facilitate and make sure that our farms are protected. So just kind of giving a little background here, obviously we're all aware that that law went into effect in January of 2023. And the county was required to pass our own ordinance in regards to it by June 1st. Specifically, the original draft of it did state that it allows a wind or solar facility to cross or impact a drainage system without obtaining prior agreement or approval from the drainage district. And it actually superseded drainage district's authority under Illinois Drainage Code. In addition to that, it did state that developer of the solar or wind facility is required to repair any damage to the drainage system in a reasonable time. However, that reasonable time was not actually defined. So as we kind of go forward to today, there was actually an amendment that started out as Senate Bill 1699 became Public Law 103-0580 that actually added 4 requirements onto the original. And many of those requirements are specific to protecting agricultural area and the drainage. So one of the requirements was requiring a vegetation management plan. The second one was requiring facilities to file a farmland drainage plan with the county and impacted drainage districts outlining how surface and subsurface drainage of farmland will be restored during and following construction and deconstruction of the facilities. There was also added language that required the facility owner to compensate landowners for crop losses and other agricultural damages resulting from the drainage impacts due to the construction. And the item that I'm really going to kind of maybe dig into a little bit deeper today is the fourth in that Senate Bill 1699, which was requiring wind and solar companies to comply with AMA, which is an agricultural mitigation agreement, and what actually that means to us here at the county. So kind of jumping into what AMA is and what it isn't. And where the concerns still lie with our drainage districts. AMA's is actually through the Illinois Department of Agriculture, and it's an agreement that's made between the Illinois Department of Agriculture and the solar or wind developer. So while the property owner of the farm or ag field that the development is occurring is receiving a copy of this agreement, they are not actually party to the agreement. The purpose is to present proposed measures for minimizing impacts to and restoring privately owned agricultural land in Illinois as a result of the project to return the right-of-way to as close as pre-construction conditions and capabilities of practical. So I would note that AMA's existed before the wind and solar law. Specifically, there's templates for what type of facility you're constructing. One of the main ones that's utilized by the Department of Agriculture is the electric line and pipeline AMA. This is one of the older versions of the agreements. And the agreements actually have some limitations in which they apply to construction activities occurring partially or wholly on privately owned agricultural lands. So if we kind of go through the qualified professionals that are required as part of the AMA agreements, the Illinois Department of Agriculture and the company that's actually doing the work have to agree on the selection of the qualified professionals, and the company will pay for the cost of the work performed by the qualified professionals. In addition, the Illinois Department of Agriculture, in consultation with the company, can remove any qualified professional due to failure to comply with the AMA. The company has to hire a replacement person within 45 days. And if they're using the local SWCD office for technical assistance, they can invoice that company directly. So in general, the AMA goes through a number of different project activities, which would be the pre-construction, which is clearing and removal of brush and debris, during construction, where you're possibly going to encounter drainage lines that need to be repaired, installing access roads, doing weekly inspections, and looking at the depth at which your utilities are buried. So for example, on a solar facility, we're looking for the depth of any of the electrical lines to be at least 5 foot below grade. And then when you're looking at the restoration activities, those electrical lines have to be removed within 18 inches of the surface, and any kind of foundations have to be removed within 5 feet. So AMA really lays out all this information for the company and what's the expectations for our during construction, during restoration, and during the final restoration back to agricultural ground. So the requirements are actually found in the Renewable Energy Facilities Agricultural Impact Act, which is 505 ILCS 147, if you want to look it up. But it is actually really easy to use on the Department of Agriculture's website. You just look up AMA and Illinois Department of Agriculture, and they have a great landing page. They have a summary, and then they also have the documents for what type of projects you're doing, and a very standardized form for what that agreement is going to look like. So you can kind of go through the different versions of the activities and look at what type of project you're looking at and what type of agreement that would fall under. So some of the AMA conditions we see in a solar project, which is what the county is seeing the most, are mitigative actions, and it's specifically to construction standards and policies, making sure that those are all in conformance with the AMA conditions. Specifications in the AMA have to meet the minimum standards for construction or deconstruction activities. And this is kind of where the push and shove comes with the Illinois Association of Drainage Districts, is that the AMA specifically states that the Illinois Department of Agriculture may utilize any legal methods to enforce the AMA. And the opinion of the Illinois Association of Drainage Districts and what we have seen is that the AMAs don't really have any teeth. We haven't seen how these legal means to enforce the AMA would actually occur at a state level. So if the AMA is being relied upon to enforce not only the construction means and methods, but also the deconstruction, the concern lies in that there's no penalties and there's no actual pathway to enforce the AMA. All provisions of the AMA shall apply to associated future construction, maintenance, and repair and deconstruction of the facility. The company may negotiate with and compensate the landowner to carry out the mitigative activities if the landowner wishes to perform some of them themselves. The execution of the AMA is made a condition of the special use permit here at the county. And not less than 30 days prior to commencement of construction, a copy of the AMA has to be filed with the county and with the facility owner. So in regards to the Illinois Association of Drainage Districts, they are working specifically with the Farm Bureau on some amendments to the wind and solar law that will further strengthen this. One of the main issues that they're also concerned with is the farms that the solar facilities are being put on are high production. And so they'd like to see something that has the LISA score of the farm incorporated, where below a certain number, you would be able to utilize those as solar fields, and above that number, those would be prohibited. So that's something that they're looking at. And they also wanted to approach this from the side of the Illinois Department of Agriculture, in that they feel like if the amendments to the wind and solar law at the state level are going to be difficult to achieve, that there's also the potential to strengthen the AMAs and the AMA language that would make it more enforceable and would make penalties to occur through that. So that's a different pathway to kind of get where we're all trying to go. So our staff in Water Resources has been working specifically with ISACO and wind and solar group there to look at some of the impacts of the wind and solar law as it relates to counties and county approvals of solar facilities. And we're currently in the process of developing a list of potential amendments to that law. However, it doesn't seem at this time that the Illinois Association of Drainage Districts and the Farm Bureau are like in lockstep with the ISACO amendments. And so it appears that both groups are going to proceed with possible amendments to the wind and solar language on their own, because they have some different types of goals that they want to achieve with those amendments. So that was a lot of information. Any questions?
A note that the soil and water people just had an election and replaced two of the directors, and they came from your area, sir.
Oh, very good.
Ladies that they think they're gonna stop the development, I think. But Gerard Fabides, this long time had served on that board, and they were defeated. That has to do with your LISA score, I'm sure.
For those who aren't familiar, the voting system for electing people to that body is, I believe, anybody who is a landowner in DuPage or King County can vote at the annual meeting. And usually you get a turnout of about 1/1000th of 1% of the
I think the scores were in the sixties,
60 people out of theoretically about 800,000 potential.
You have to go over to the
Owners.
office and
Yeah.
vote. It's-
$1,600,000.
Yeah, but it makes it very susceptible to,
You don't get the people to
Right.
vote.
Yep.
Mr.
Anyway.
Chairman, a comment is that I have heard from a number of board members that have asked, they know the term Lisa score, but they don't really know what that means. And I think that possibly one of the committees could do something that would inform some of the newer people.
Could you do that briefly, or you
Yeah.
want to do it next month?
Well, I
We can bring some slides.
Okay. Madam Chairman?
I have one question for Jody. Jody, you mentioned the remediation and you said that the electric lines go down 5 feet for the installation, but with the restoration, it's 18 inches.
Correct.
What am I not?
It's
they supposed
based
to
on,
remove them all?
yeah, it's based on farm equipment. So the foundations are to be removed to 5 feet, but the electrical is to be removed to 18 inches based on your tillage.
So the electrical lines will stay down 5 feet
Correct,
forever?
correct.
That's not very, not a restorative practice, is it?
If you're demolishing a house, there is usually some standards regards to that. So I would have to, I don't know what they are. I don't know if you know, Mark, off the top of your head, what the typical demo depth for a foundation versus electrical lines on a house, but I think it's pretty standard. We have a lot of old electric lines and Nicor lines that we run into when we're doing public works construction. So there are standards in how deep you need to go to remove those facilities.
Yeah, and typically for foundations and other infrastructure, 5 feet is sort of the standard depth to go to remove those, especially the foundations.
So in time, don't they disintegrate? Water, change of season, and doesn't that get into the soil?
I don't
ju-
have, yeah, I don't have enough background on that to, yeah.
Curious,
Yeah.
just curious.
I mean, if you drive around a lot of areas like in Iowa, you'll find a lot of abandoned homes or, old farmsteads where they are just there in the ground and no one's removed them.
We try to remove them here when the development department finds that they're in violation.
Correct.
Usually notice a lot of farms
Interesting.
collapsing, buildings are falling in.
Thank you. That just,
Yeah.
you learn something every day.
Okay. Anything to add? No more questions? Wow.
Well, okay.
But next month, have your talks ready, young ladies, so you can tell us what you're gonna do. We look forward to your help. Is there no new business? Reports on file, can we do that?
Unanimous consent if
Okay.
you so
Mr.
desire.
Leonard?
So I would move for unanimous consent,
Proceeding
put the
all
reports on file.
to you, so you don't have to do this. There's no executive session, there's no public comment, so here we are at adjournment.
Leonard
Wanna
so
adjourn?
moves.
Oh,
I think we have to have a motion and a second on that.
Yes, you have to have a motion and a second, but you do not have to have a roll call or extended debate.
say aye. So you move?
I did, and I think Ms. Juby is going to second that.